Please welcome to the stage, Vice President, Channel Events, Channel Partners, Bob DeMarzo.
Good people out here. Is this live? There we go. The mic's on. All right, I got a couple of minutes. Welcome back from lunch, everybody. How was the morning keynotes, the breakouts, your lunch? Come on, you feeling good? You ready for a good afternoon? No. Come on. Are you feeling good? Now everybody has a good night. Thank you. All right. So hopefully you enjoyed this morning. Hopefully you enjoyed the breakouts. I poked my head in as many as I could. They were nice and crowded. Everybody looked like there was lots of engagement. Good lunch here being served. We've got the tabletops in the MSP Summit Expo Hall. We've got a jam-packed afternoon right in this room. In a few minutes, I'm going to be bringing up our very own David Raffo and Omar Fouad from the Alexander Group. Are going to talk about how to strategically grow your revenue. Omar's organization studies and helps companies, not just in tech, but outside of tech. So you'll get a view on how companies today across a broad spectrum of industries are growing their revenue. After that, we've got Kaseya Keynote. We've got a cyber panel that Kelly and I are going to moderate. We've got Ingram, and then we've got the CEO of Enable here. That is a great afternoon. Now, it looks like everybody's rested and the room is nice and packed. Without further ado, I am going to bring up the Channel Partners event content editor, David Raffo, who's here with our special guest, Omar Fouad from the Alexander Group. Going to help you grow your revenue while you're finishing up your lunch. So how about a nice round of applause for both David and Omar. Come on up, guys.
So, Omar, this is your first, right? Your first Channel Partners conference, first MSP Summit?
Yeah.
Not your first session, you did a breakout, but your first part. So some of the people here, the MSPs may not be that familiar with the Alexander Group. Why don't you just give us a quick rundown on what you guys do, where you get your data from, and how you help MSPs?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. First of all, thank you so much for having me at this conference. You guys do an exceptional job and really honored to be part of this year's event. At the Alexander Group, we do a lot of research in go-to-market topics, marketing, sales, service side of the house. And that's built off of the 40 years of client engagements that we've done. We work with clients as big as the Fortune 500 companies down into companies that might be just starting out a few years into their journey. And a lot of what we do with those clients is looking at their go-to-market models. We curate a set of benchmarks and database, really answering the question of how do I optimize my sales and marketing investment? How do I get the most out of the structure in my organization? And so, for instance, working with an MSP currently that took some private equity investment, and now they've grown with that, and it's been really good for them, and they've got new challenges. What does the organization look like today? What does the marketing team look like? What does the sales team look like? How do we think about new roles that they need to introduce? And so we bring a lot of our benchmark and metrics to help answer those questions across sales expense to revenue, span of control ratios for some of their sellers.
So some of, the times are changing as always. So some MSPs are looking to become trusted advisors as well. What advice would you have to companies like that?
Yeah, this is a very common thing we're seeing with a lot of our MSP clients. And really it's being customer driven. Their customers are asking them, can you help me on this digital transformation journey? Can you provide me more than just managed services from some of your offerings, or even more offerings across the tech stack for the managed services? And so as they're making that transition to be this solution provider, it can be, first of all, it can be a pretty profitable place to be and increase some of their margins, but we've seen some companies stumble on that journey when we think about the go-to-market topics. And when they're out there thinking about adding in new offerings and capabilities, then they really need to take a step back and see, do we have the right structure and system set up in our organization? And I think back to the Abbott and Costello routine where who's on first, what's on second, I don't know who's on third. We see that with companies as they're adding in consulting capabilities along with managed services. And so really taking a step into the annual planning process and structure themselves to bring the right resources to the right conversations at the right time. And And that starts with figuring out your customers. As you add on more capabilities, not all customers are going to want to buy across the full stack. So how do you segment your customers and really understand their needs and the right offering for them? And then that goes into how do you set yourselves up to work with those customers in those different segments. There's going to be different buyer journeys for each of those segments of customers that you want to work with. And then the hard part is then how do you structure resources for each of that? And what we're seeing with companies that are moving to that solution provider space is, do you have the right roles for that? A lot of times it was the seller that was doing pretty much everything and having their initial discovery call all the way to proposal and ultimately orders. And now that you're having these more robust conversations, you might be working with not just the IT buyer, but maybe a business buyer, and they're asking you to bring in discussions on consulting topics like digital transformation. So now the seller really needs to be a conductor of the orchestra at that point, and bringing in whether it's a delivery subject matter expert SME to the conversation. Those are very expensive resources. The headcount on those aren't cheap, and those people are really busy. So really understanding that sales process. When do we bring the SME in, have a very productive conversation with our clients, and when do we expect the seller to focus on that as well?
So what are the common mistakes you see MSPs make, either when they're making that transition or other things that they're doing?
Yeah, a lot of times it comes down to, what got you here is not going to get you where you need to go. And a lot of the times those companies, we've seen this through private equity where they've gone and partnered with the private equity firm. They've made some acquisitions, and now they have different parts of their organization that they haven't integrated together. And so that's one of the first things is, are you taking the time to take a step back, look at your customers, looked at this new offering, and make sure that you're organizing around the customer. And that's the critical piece there as you think about starting with the customer and that buyer journey, and then mapping your processes, your people, and your resources around that.
So I hear a lot of MSPs, they'll say, there's so much M&A going on in the industry now. A lot of MSPs say, we're not looking to be bought, we're not looking to buy anybody, but, if somebody comes to us, we'll listen. So, how do you advise companies, whether they're actively looking to sell or not, to make their business, more valuable to an acquisition?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it does come up quite a lot, especially in this environment. And the first thing to realize is not all the buyers are created equal. So there's different companies out there that might want to buy you and expect you to retire off to the keys. And there's other companies that want to come in and they want really an investment around how can we grow this, how can we use what you've been doing great and expand that to other offerings. So really understanding your space. A lot of the companies we work with on the revenue growth side is they're looking for a buyer, but really an investor that's going to help them supercharge growth. And so they need to come to these conversations with these potential investors and, number one, have a real strong idea of what are their end customers and markets and how they're going to be successful. Number two, they really need a vision on where that success is going to come from and how they're going to scale. And number three, they need a plan in place that comes down with how they're going to use the investment wisely, how they're also going to make sure that they have the talent in-house to execute on that plan. And all this has to be data supported these days. I was working with a client, MSP based in Texas, in the telecom and networking space. And they were looking to get some investment, and they really felt like they had something that can grow beyond Texas across the US. And they were able to work with us, and we identified where have they been successful? What are the firmographics of the clients, the account size they're dealing with, the industries that they're working with, and some of those pieces, and really come up with a total addressable market, data-driven approach to tell the private equity investors that, hey, here's the TAM, here's the potential of what we can go after. The second thing they did was really put together a vision on what is the offering that they're going to put together, why they felt they have a right to win, and what is that competitive environment in different states that they wanted to scale into. And then that led them to the execution, the plan itself. They put together a stage approach using the TAM by each state on what states they thought that were most attractive to begin with, what are some early indicators for success that they wanted to spell out, and ultimately put together a business case on what it's going to cost for the number of people for these states that they want to move into, and really, how that private equity investor is going to make some money on the back end, because they're always looking for value creation and trying to create some money for themselves as well.
So when you see, you said some acquisition targets that the acquirer just wants the CEO to take off and retire, whatever. Do those acquisitions work? Because it seems like it's, they lose the relationship with the customers, right? If the leaders go and then the talent goes, why will the customers stay? Have you seen any of those actually work?
Yeah, there's risk involved with that, right? And a lot of times, private equity companies, as part of their due diligence on looking after different MSPs they want to acquire or they want to add to another MSP they acquired, is the cultural fit, and that's not something they take lightly. They want to make sure that once the leadership exit, there's not a vacuum in place, and they have talented people that can fill that gap, either from other companies they've acquired or within the organization. The other piece they're looking at too is, how much of the sales is coming from the owner. A lot of the MSPs we work with, that CEO, that president, that founder, he or she is wearing a lot of hats. And how does the business survive with somebody that's your top seller, that's also your top delivery SME, that's also the person going out there for thought leadership? And a lot of times that becomes multiple different roles that these private equity companies have to realize that we need to put together. So if you can think ahead of what are the questions that they're going to be asking, as you think about maybe you're in a position that you do want to retire and you see an opportunity to sell the business, then get ahead of those questions with the firm. Explain to them your succession plan. Explain to them how this firm is going to be successful once you leave, and that's going to help you get a good multiple in the business as well.
So in your earlier breakout session today, you talked a lot about realignment, a lot of, another change is how a lot of companies have to realign their whole sales and marketing around the go-to-market. So, what are some of the things you're seeing there with the changes, and what are companies, how are the good companies adjusting, and what are some of the other ones doing poorly in that area?
Yeah, it really comes down to having a plan. And we talked about in the session 4 different imperatives. One is identify. The second one is differentiate. Third is align. And the fourth is enable. So when we think about identifying, do we know the customers that we're going after? Do we have a strong idea of what that addressable market is? What is that ideal customer profile? What's not working today, or what you're going to start seeing very limited diminishing returns on, is if you're trying to be everything to everyone. We've all got to find out, well, what is our niche, what is our value, and how do we find the customers aligned to that value that we can bring to play? Which leads into differentiate. Do we have the right offering? Is it fitting on the customer needs? By the way, that's evolving over time. Have we taken a refresh, and do we have not just the best technology in this space, and we're partnering with the right vendors, but do we have also the right value prop for our target customer segments that we want to go after? And are we aligned across the organization? Is marketing using that for branding and events? Is sales saying that in their sales pitches? Which brings us to the third point around aligning. Do we align our resources in our organization, our marketing, our sales? Are we aligned around that ideal customer profile? Do we have the right sales roles in place? We're seeing a lot of companies, as they grow and they become more of a solution provider, having those high-level conversations with business leaders and IT leaders to do a digital transformation is a very different look and feel for the type of sales conversation that it is for maybe reselling a telecom solution in a fast-paced environment. And then lastly is enable. And this is a key thing. We want to make sure that incentives are aligned across the organization. If we are making a big change to our offering, do we have the talent profile and who we need to recruit in our organization? Yeah. Do we even have the tools to make them successful with the right onboarding program? And then with the incentive structure, all the way from leadership bonuses down to the salesperson commission plan, are those aligned on where everybody should be focused on that the organization is seeing that the growth bets are going to come into play.
And what about on the marketing side? I know you said, that requires some tweaking, and I think you said something about a lot of marketing programs are designed to go for volume, but they're attracting high volume of people who aren't likely to buy. So what changes need to be made there?
Yeah, marketing is a very dynamic place right now, and marketing of 10 years ago doesn't look anything like modern successful marketing of today. And it's all driven by us. We're all consumers, and we're used to this digital, offline, seamless customer experience that we get from brands like a Samsung or an Apple for iPhones. And so how do we replicate that with our companies in the B2B space? It's really understanding how do we think about that digital engagement? Where are our customers going after? Are we meeting them at the events that they're after? Are we meeting them online where they go and they get their own information? Are we becoming thought leaders in the space and really positioning ourselves? And then nowadays, a lot of that online, offline transition, it begins online. And do we have a website that really gives our value prop and makes it easy for people to understand how we can help them out? And if they do reach out with us online, then we can keep that experience into a conversation with the salesperson and ultimately make it a very seamless customer experience on the B2B side that they're used to and actually demanding because of their consumer experiences.
All right, very good. I think we are just about out of time now, so I hope you all give it up for Omar. I hope you found this interesting, some good information. Thanks, Omar.
Thank you.